I was probably 16 at the time. I just got home from soccer practice and was alone in my house with my dog. Everyone else was still at work when I came home, and I was extremely exhausted from all the work that our coach did to us, that all I wanted to do was just lie dead on my bed and just scroll on my phone. While I was scrolling, I suddenly heard a loud bang from downstairs, like a door slamming shut. I assumed it was my sister getting home, and for some context, we had a small basement area in our apartment where my sister was staying at the time. She used a separate entrance, and whenever she came home, she'd always make a lot of noise. It's almost like she wanted to announce that she was back. So that loud bang that I heard, it didn't really strike me as strange. My dog immediately jumped off the bed and ran downstairs to greet her like he always did. And after that, I didn't really think much of it, and I just decided to went to the bathroom. After a minute, I realized something felt off. My sister hadn't come upstairs to say hi, like she always did, and I didn't hear my dog barking, or just even making any noise anymore. It was severely quiet, but suddenly, I heard barking, but it wasn't coming from downstairs. It was coming from outside. I looked out the window and caught a glimpse of my dog chasing something down the street. My stomach dropped, and I ran downstairs, and that's when I noticed it. The basement door and the separate entrance was wide open. My sister wasn't home. Someone had opened that door, and they must have heard the TV upstairs, and they must have heard my dog running down the stairs towards them, and because of that, they probably ran. I stood there, staring at the open doorway, and realizing that someone was inside my house. Needless to say, I was scared out of my mind for a long time after that, and we ended up getting a security system not long after. I live in a slightly rural neighborhood. There was always gang violence, guns being shot in the distance, or junkies just hanging out at a nearby park. It wasn't a great neighborhood, really. One night, after about midnight, I hear banging on my door. I thought it was my boyfriend, since he usually hangs out at my place after his shift is done. When I got to the door, I looked at the people to check if it was my boyfriend, but instead, I saw the side of an unfamiliar bearded man just looking back. He didn't see me through the peephole, but I slowly backed away from the door quietly. My house was in a cellular dead zone, so even if I called using my phone, it would be useless. I grabbed the landline next to my bed to call 911, but the line was dead. I immediately felt chills around my spine, since I felt like I was in a horror movie where the killer cuts the phone line. Meanwhile, the guy was still pounding away and slurring, "Let me in!" I grabbed the biggest chef knife I own and locked myself in the bathroom instantly. I stood on the edge of the tub and behind the shower curtain, figuring I might have a chance if I jumped on him and stabbed him between the neck and shoulder when he tried to bust down the door. He started working his way around the outside of the house, and I could hear him sliding his hands along the sliding door and banging his fist against the walls. I desperately needed to call the police, but the landline phone next to my bed was already dead. I didn't know what to do, but I remembered there was a phone nearby to the stairs, where I sometimes use it to call my boyfriend. I have never felt more fear than the moment I climbed down from my hiding spot and unlocked the bathroom door and went in to grab the phone by the stairs, all while this freak was moving outside my house and just violently trying to unlock every door and window. I found the phone by the stairs, and luckily, it worked. So immediately, I dialed 911, but the closest officer was over 15 minutes away. I was told to stay on the line and just to lock myself in the bathroom again. And while waiting for the cops to arrive, it felt like this was the longest 15 minutes of my life. When the police arrived, they had me identified this drunk, scruffy, bearded kid and told me that apparently there had been a party down the road, and the kid got so tipsy that he thought my house was his friend's house. So, because of that, he was trying to get back inside the party for 20 minutes, thinking that my house was his friend's house. I understood the situation, and the cops just escorted the man in the back of the police car, and they just drove off. When I was 19, my brother and my parents had gone away for the weekend, and I decided to stay behind. At the time, it was a pretty rough night, and I was very drunk and decided to pull a Britney Spears move and cut off all of my long hair drunkenly, thinking to reinvent myself. Because I was moving away for university the following week, and when I was finished rinsing the fresh cut hair off of my neck in the shower, I left the bathroom to find a note in the hallway that said, "I was going to leave you a note, but I see that you are here." I was so freaked out since my brother and my parents were away for the weekend, so who in the hell left this note? I decided to just get some clothes first since I was walking around my house naked, but when I opened the door to my room, there was a guy with long hair standing in the middle of the room grinning at me. I freaked out and screamed bloody murder as one tends to do when they are a naked 19-year-old encountering an unexpected stranger in their empty house at 2:30 in the morning. Until I recognized him. It was the boy that I dated in my first year of high school, 3 years previously for 2 weeks, until he ran away from home. And turns out, he had heard I was moving away and just wanted to talk. He didn't hurt me or threaten me in any way, other than breaking into my house in the middle of the night, but just decided to hand me some clothes from my bed instead. We chatted for a little bit until he eventually left. I found out 2 years later that he's been institutionalized with schizophrenia. My wife and I recently moved out of our home that I can only describe as fucked up. That house caused so much anger and hatred, and whatever entity resides in the home is either menacing or pure evil. Even as soon as my wife moved into the home when she was a child, she always told me a story of when she and her little brother were playing one night in his room. They were playing with a leapfrog type device, and she described in detail about how she was showing her brother how to use it. And then suddenly, it began to act strange. There were strange sounds coming out of it, and then a man's voice beginning to scream from it. She said it was saying something about a list, and something about making mistakes and screaming and cursing until she turned it off. So let's fast forward some. I met my wife a few years ago, and needless to say, she got knocked up. Yeah, wear a condom, kids. Anyway, we decided that I should stay with her since it was the most logical thing to do. Like, sweet, no problem. And at the time, I was working the night shift at 10 at night until 7 in the morning. And this will come up later. So after a few weeks of moving in, I noticed that there was something strange about the house. The upstairs where we lived seemed menacing in a way, like someone was in the other room waiting for you. And at first, I brushed it off as just being nervous, because, new house, new life kind of thing. So I also thought that it may be because of my insomnia from work that could be causing it. So as time went on, I began noticing more and more weird things happening. Like whenever the house should have been dead silent, things would happen. My footsteps up and down the hallways, knocks on doors, and sometimes I just hear whispers around the house. And being an avid believer in spirits, I wasn't particularly afraid until things started getting dark. One evening, I was just alone in the house and just lying on the couch watching some Netflix and hoping to fall asleep. I was in the midst of dozing off, but suddenly I heard footsteps running down the hallway. I sat up immediately and looked over the couch, but there was nothing. My eyes were just staring down the dark hallway, wondering what the fuck did I just hear. And terrified, I tried to grab my phone to call my wife if she was playing pranks on me, because it was crystal clear that I heard something behind me. But she didn't pick up. And thinking maybe it was just the house settling in, or maybe I was just sleep deprived, I don't know. I was trying to come up with so many different conclusions, and just the more I think about it, the more I stare into the dark hallway and wonder, was it just me being sleep deprived, or is someone messing with me? Later in the week, my wife had gotten into a bad habit of sleeping with the closet light on. Well, I blame myself for that one. I just should have just kept my mouth shut. So, anyways, we were lying there talking about baby stuff, right? And I noticed that the curtain that covered the closet opening moved. My wife was curled into me facing my chest, and I was just staring at the closet. And as I kept watching the closet, I saw what I can only describe as a tiny mist like figure. Not like white mist, okay? But slightly darker than the rest of the background, moving out from the closet. It was maybe 3 feet tall and vanished as quick as it appeared. And as soon as I began telling my wife on what happened, she suddenly felt a sharp pinch on her back. She didn't cry out nor scream. She just calmly turned around and shouted, "Get the fuck out and leave us the fuck alone!" Well, too bad it didn't work. Now, let's fast forward. You're probably wondering what else happened. Well, small stuff here and there for a while. Footsteps were very regular, and I know some of you are probably saying, "It's the house settling in, jackass." I would agree. But not only did the footsteps stretch out the entire length of the 20-foot hallway, but they were sometimes fast. And the knocks on the doors were very rhythmic. You know, like when you knock on a friend's door at their home or something? Yeah, that kind of rhythmic. So a few nights have passed, and after this recent Christmas, things began to spark up to a new level. One day I was sitting on my computer, and my wife came into the room asking me what I needed from the store. And the computer room was directly across from the bathroom, and our daughter's door was to the immediate left of that, and the stairs were to the right. So I began telling my wife what I wanted when she looked out the door, and then she turned. Ghost. White. Her eyes got big, then her mouth dropped. She slowly turned towards me. I just saw a man walk into Elena's room. She begins describing what it looked like. It was about 6 feet tall, black, and only slightly translucent. While she's describing this, I walk into the hallway and go into my daughter's room. Have you ever walked into a freezer like the ones Walmart stocks ice cream in? That immediate chill is what I felt when I walked in there. There was nothing, of course, but as soon as we began walking out, a set of metal bed frames had been laying against the wall for over a year, I might add. It slid down and fell to the floor. My wife turned back into the room and told whatever it was to get the fuck out of her home. But it didn't, of course. January rolls by and things really picked up before we moved out. The power got knocked out during a sudden storm, and we were left in the dark for a night. My wife at this point wanted nothing to do with the home, just wanted to stay with her dad's. So we began packing her things for the night, and I went downstairs and got my daughter loaded up in the car, and as I started walking back, my wife shot out of the door, nearly in tears. I asked her what was wrong, and she only said simply, I don't want to talk. Just close the door and let's go. The upstairs to the home is pitch fucking black, even on the brightest day due to the layout. So when the power goes off during an overcast, You might as well be underground. My wife was in our room gathering her makeup and things with only a flashlight. And as she was loading things into her bag, she heard someone walk from the stairs, down the hallway, and right up against her back. She assumed it was me. When she turned around, she saw nothing but black. And it wasn't like darkness black, okay? But imagine someone holding a black sheet in front of you. Even on our moving day, things were happening upstairs. It was the worst I've personally ever felt. Just dread and sorrow. My wife once again had something walk up on her and heard knocks on the bedroom door while she was packing. We've gone back a few times to get a thing or two since we left in February, and every time, it's just terrifying walking up the stairs. But I feel that I should end this on a high note. We moved into a brand new home, and it is completely different experience from here. And it genuinely helped our relationship, and has taken a huge burden off of us. My parents were out of town for a week, and my brother worked a lot, so I was often home alone. I heard someone sneaking around on our deck and trying to open the door when I was in plain view. They accidentally hit the drink cooler and ran away when I looked. I called the cops, and turns out a man was watching the house for a few days because he knew my parents weren't home. And they say he had the intent to hurt whomever was inside the house. And he wasn't looking for anyone to steal.